to it. There was a House vote in the United States. What's going on here regarding UFOs?
Indeed. And so it looks like the House approved a measure on Wednesday to create a secure system for reporting UFOs. And the system would allow for immediate sharing of information with scientists and analysts and government personnel. So the way this is going to work is immediate disbursement of information and cases to the people that can look deeply into it. And the way this will work, it'll actually siphon out anything that is a project that is ours that doesn't need to be looked into any further, whether it be black or white. And so this is going to open things up for people that need to talk about their witnessed events, and it'll offer up absolute protection for people that perhaps have an NDA or some kind of clearance that they normally wouldn't be able to talk on this topic. So it's absolutely groundbreaking and it's major, and this is the first step in this process getting underway.
Why is it significant? Why should we care about this?
Well, it's significant in lots of ways. So it's offering a way that people can come out independently and tell their story without having to worry about any repercussions legally or anything that they have binding with their independent NDAs. So if you're working at Boeing and you want to come forward on something, you would still be able to without breaking those NDAs. Because if you talk about anything classified, it won't make it to any ears that it shouldn't. And following in this report, there's some deep wordage that also says that a lot of this information will actually not be made public. So it will just be used as a database of information for Congress, which is really important.
I always get concerned, though, when this is just made for Congress, because if somebody like Luis Elizondo decided to use this, the public is still in the dark.
Right. And I understand that. And let me interrupt very quickly. And let's say that there is a case that they're looking into. There is a classified and a declassified version of that story. So if there is something that they're working on, we will know about it publicly, but we won't necessarily know the details, if that makes any sense. So we may not know the source because the source is something top secret, but we may hear the details, kind of like what we heard with Nimitz. We don't hear how they sourced that information, but we know the information. So back at you as to your concern, please.
Well, I guess my concern is, it comes down to the disclosure movement. It's like they're pining for disclosure, and they're taking all of these baby steps towards it, which I do agree with. I think it's necessary. I think it's a positive step. But there's all these yeah buts that come in between. Yeah, but we can't let this information out. Yeah, but that's national security. Yeah, but my son doesn't want to get scared at night. Or yeah, but my daughter doesn't want to go on a date with aliens. Whatever it may be. There's always a yeah, but with everything. They just can't do anything that's bloody well concise and proper for the public. This is what I find frustrating. I understand. Don't get me wrong. I understand. But I find it frustrating because one side of their mouth, they're talking disclosure, and the other side of their mouth, everything is national security. You can't have both.
Yeah, I can see you're playing the Canadian card here, and Devil's Advocate is sliding in, and I absolutely love it, Dave. Thank you. And you're waving your cannabis flag above your head there behind you. Oh, I'm sorry, the Canadian flag behind you. I think it's wonderful that you're bringing this up because, quite honestly, that is a concern, and it should be something that's recognized. And of course, we can't just take everything at face value. But let's recognize that this is a major step forward as to allowing the people that want to talk about this and need to a safe zone to do so. And so, again, we're talking about an online reporting system that has immediate dissemination of information to scientists and analysts. And so that's the proper wordage there, I think, directly from the report. And so we have to consider that a massive step forward in transparency, and an opportunity for the people that really need to report to come forward again. I can't see this having a negative at this point if it works the way it's supposed to. Excuse me. But again, I do appreciate that we haven't had a lot of good experience with government-run programs, and so we should always remain suspicious. And if I was someone that was looking to come forward, I would make sure that this program ticked all the boxes. But I love the wordage that's been used, and it's actually available online. So you can take a close look at what this program entails and who it's going to protect and how. But a lot of it delves into programs that people may be interested in, and offering safety for people that have NDAs that work for independent companies. So a lot of the mystery behind potential, let's just say, recreation craft, if that's a thing. Well, the people that potentially work on that can come forward and talk about it if they have to or need to or want to. And without giving away details. I think that those are the people that will come forward and be protected. Let's also consider people that were deeply involved in Roswell. Let's just say that they wanted to come forward, or if you had a family member that was deeply connected that had evidence. I think these are the people that will have this opportunity to feel protected and come out with that evidence. And let's hope we get proof. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Somebody that has inscrutable proof that something took place in historical times, to corroborate events. I think that's the kind of thing that we're hoping to dig for here with this kind of legislation.
And I can understand that, and I agree with that. But the fatigue that people are having regarding where's the transparency, that's what I look at. Now, the mainstream public doesn't care. Let's just be blunt and honest. They don't care. They haven't cared since the beginning, because it's it's not the size of a Kardashian daughter's butt. I mean, let's just I mean, that's the reality of it, unfortunately. But the big thing is, for those the thousands who do care, hundreds of thousands who do care about this topic, like you, like me, and our audience out there who's tuned on in, we're tired of it. That's where we keep seeing these roadblocks come up, Tim. And when these roadblocks come up, we just we throw a tantrum.
That's
We're
right.
tired. All right. We don't want it. Like, I can't crap or get off the pot.
That's
You know
right.
what I'm
And
saying?
so what I'm hearing is that you feel like there's a lack of public oversight. And so I would like to enforce here that this has some details on that, on how it will have a report. And so within this, there will be a public portion that they will be responsible for, if not annually, biannually. And I think that there's wordage as to which. And so we do have some public oversight. We'll get the soft version of what's going on. And so we can't ask for more than that as the public. So there is public oversight here. So perhaps you won't feel cheated if this program entails the way it will, and unfolds the way I hope it does. So Dave, I love that you're saying these things. Let's keep that dialogue going on this topic, because you are on the cutting edge of this. And if you saw some gaps, I'm sure you would know how to report that in the chain of events. But do you see anything other than the potential for the lack of transparency? What other gaps do you see in this?
I see the same secrets being held out. That's what bothers me. Right? Look, if they come out with more stories, okay, like the Nimitz, which I fear will only be from 2004 this way to where we are today. Because let's face it, they don't want to go previous to 2004 for some unknown reason. My fear is we've had enough control of this subject. We've had enough of the controlling the medium regarding this subject. They already know that there's not a single reporter out there, barring a handful, that actually know what a UFO is, let alone knowing how to cover a story like this. And I worry that a lot of these stories are getting lost in translation because of the lack of information and the lack of pressure that the journalists and the public are putting on the government about a story that is going to affect 7.75 billion people on this planet. That's what I'm concerned about.
Right. And so I'm hearing also that what you're saying is that we're not asking the right questions, and that our media isn't covering this in a way that is, let's just call it easy access for the general public. And so it's not digestible. And so it's not being processed properly. And so the media doesn't even know the questions to ask. That's why MUFON in particular had to give details to the people that were asking questions at the United States public hearings, right? As we well know. So
Very
obviously the people in power don't even know the questions to ask on this topic. They had to reach out to MUFON. Okay. So be that as it may, that's the route that went. And so what does that tell you? The media has not done its job on this topic because it's way ahead of them. People like you, fortunately, keep them on check, but how far is our reach, right? Only as good as our throw. And so we have to consider that this topic is kind of out of our hands. And as you said, being trickled out. But this I see as a massive step in something that's needed on this topic. Now, again, it is a government-run project. So people that are already a little bit wary of that may not report through it. But at least it'll get seen 100% and that same day, because they're talking about immediate dissemination to analysts and scientists. So according to the wordage, it would be handled properly. I don't think they're going to drop the ball on something major. And hopefully it reveals something that we can share publicly, at least a little bit of. And at our next public hearing, we won't be scrambling to freeze frame on an object for 10 minutes and make ourselves look like we're not prepared on this topic.
All right, my friend, we've got about 1 minute to go here. Let's tease the next one. NASA and Russia.
Absolutely.
Oh, NASA.
That's right.
Fill me in.
Well, again, we're looking at a partnership moving out into space, as we did when we were partnering up earlier. When we were actually not only just selling seats on our rockets, but partnering up out in space on the science and workstations that we have. There's multiple at this point, but I'm hearing about collaboration on satellites and a few other projects. So this isn't just sharing seats on rockets anymore. But I can tell you, Dave, it's a partnership that could potentially lead to other partnerships. So it may not have a checkered past of glory, but we could maybe see some light down at the end of the tunnel.
Well, let's talk about this a little bit more, because I always find it interesting, Tim, that when two countries allegedly hate each other so much that they're willing to spend billions upon billions of dollars on nuclear weapons to kill each other, potentially in the future, that they'll go into space together, holding hands, looking for them aliens. We'll be back with Tim Seanor and the UFO Report when we return for the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio right after this. Stay tuned. All right, we're clear. Hi, gorgeous Marie. Good to see you here. And you're going to get me fired up with that last one, too. Just so you know.
Good if we have time, because I wanted to sneak in my project announcement too, because we're going public. We actually went public earlier today.
Did
So
you?
we did.
Hi, gorgeous Amber's Paraworld. Tim McCart saying he's a breakfast for dinner kind of guy. Sorry to hear about that. Probably likes soccer too. Uh-huh.
Yes. Yes. Man after my own heart. Attaboy Tim. And his name is Tim. So
I got my
appreciate
gnome
that.
socks on today.
Oh, you know, I considered it, but I have shorts on, and Dave Scott got me some fun socks at the airport. You guys can probably all guess what's on those socks. If you get it right in the chat, I'll wear them next time I'm on and show them all to you.
I loved them so much, I got me a pair too.
Do we have the same image on ours?
Yes, we do, my friend.
Oh, well, there you
Yes,
go. Did you say out loud what was on them?
No, I did not.
All right, good. Let your audience guess because they're fun. But they know you. They can probably guess. Yeah, buddy. At what point do you want me to talk about
Look at
that?
SJ, right
Very
off
end?
the bat. Right
Oh,
off
he
the
nailed
bat.
it. Yeah.
Right off the bat.
Yep.
SJ
got it. Good call, buddy. All right.
Uh-huh.
I'll wear them tomorrow. Or what is it going to be? Monday?
Monday.
Yeah. I'm losing track of
At
days.
the same time.
That'll be fun.
Those are my gnome socks right there.
Okay. Those are fun.
Those are great. Those are great.
That is great.
Mm-hmm. They're really
Love it.
warm.
Man, you sound so congested. It's so weird hearing you stuffed up like that. So sorry.
Look at Holly here. Matching socks. What the hell really happened in Vegas?
It was not my idea, I can say that. But it's a hell of a surprise. What a swell guy.
They're good socks. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hey, by the way, you know what? A little addition. There was a new term in that dialogue that came out in that paperwork and that story we just covered.
Oh, what is it?
All right. So in that measure, there was a new term that came out, which I think is important. And it sounds like they're trying to scrub UAP and replace it with UAUP. And that UAUP. Yep. And that specifically is unidentified aerospace undersea phenomenon.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Can we just get back to UFO and USO? For God's sakes, the government's got to fuck up everything.
Melinda
Seriously.
Leslie agrees. I can tell you it was a little bit of a shocker because what does that tell you has happened since their last open meeting? It tells me that their thinking underwater is something that they absolutely have to take a look at and request specifically information on. That is very interesting.
Yep.
Times are changing.
I hear you. Don't like it. Don't like it a bit. Oh,
it's good stuff.
It is good stuff, but come on.
I prefer UFO. Just the whole thing.
Just UFO. Guess what?
Yeah.
It's simple.
Yeah.
You know? Demi doesn't want us calling aliens because we may hurt their feelings. Now it's UAUP.
Right. I mean, I get that.
UFO. UFO. USO. UFO. USO. Look how simple. Covers it all.
It does. It does. It does. Because that way MUFON doesn't even have to worry about, you know, what they're calling things. They could do more if they didn't, you know, call everything something. Right?
All right, we got 30 seconds. Big thank you to Cat Chaser, Jennifer, Dennis, Magneticus ×2, Grant, Jeremy, Paul, Vaughn, Lyle, Bob, and Thomas for the super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love. Thank you to everybody who's given us a thumbs up tonight and a thumbs down. We appreciate it for our algorithms after the show. Don't forget to leave a comment. Here we go. Rounded third, we're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. I'm a UFO guy. Yes, I am. Why wouldn't I be? Because I like it. Yeah, Tim, I know. We were talking about during the break this new acronym the government's coming out with, UAUP, Unidentified Aerial and Underwater Phenomena. Remember when UFO was just the simple part of everything? UFO. Guess what, Tim? It still works.
It does.
Still works.
I'm with you, Dave.
And there's nothing, but before the wokers out there start going nuts, there is nothing to be offended by UFO or USO. Nothing.
That's
All
right.
Let's just clarify that for our woke people out there. All right.
That's right.
Moving on. Before we go any further on the news, you had an exciting announcement on your Anonymous Rex YouTube channel from earlier today. Was it on Anonymous Rex? Or you just put something out to the public? Tell me about it.
That's right. And so Project Starlight is a mobile lab that is bought and paid for independently, ready to roll out early. Actually, we had projected for the 28th of July. It's actually going to roll out the 21st of July. So it's installed with sensory data gathering equipment, and it'll be going to hotspots across the country, starting off at Skinwalker right next door at Blind Frog Ranch, picking up information there, and then hopefully we're shortly going to be replacing it with a brand new one that'll actually have a second location, and we'll start triangulating with a third by the end of the year. And this is under the blanket of a company, an organization called UAPRG, which is the UAP Research Group. And so they will be out there looking for data this year and making that public. There will be a live webcam, multiple live webcams, 24 hours a day on those scientists that are going to be out there at those locations. And then, yes, through Anonymous Rex, you'll be able to access that. And so we'll put that information up through Spaced Out Radio, and you guys can keep an eye on those guys and help them keep an eye on the skies. But it's a brand new project that was in process for about 3 months. And we were able to gather a great group, and we'll be out at the location on the 21st.
You know what I love about it? You guys could have used UFO RG.
Well, we have UFO RG, and unfortunately that part is the historical research group, right? And so thanks for bringing it up. And I know you're feeding me that, and I appreciate it. So UFO RG is another group of people that are working with us, with Paul Hynek and people like David Marlar and his library. And we are going to be helping to collate a lot of data that's historical. And we're going to mix that up with our research that's current. And we're going to have a representative presenting that data at Congress. And so under the public's eye, and with public scientists and volunteers, ex-university professors of mine, and people that are also within the community, anybody for that matter within the community is welcome to this data, the raw data for that matter. So please, we'll keep it very transparent and public. You guys will have access, and we'll keep you updated as to everything that we find.
Who's involved with this?
So on the research side right now, we have a few volunteers. And I'm not sure if I should name them publicly yet, but there are um yeah, I'm not sure if should name the people publicly at this point, but
Okay.
everyone is voluntarily making their time available to us, excuse me, for these location research data collections. So we are going to be rotating people out. And we have, so right now I have 8 volunteers doing research. And then I have 4 people that will be reviewing it via a satellite locations at universities and their homes. And then I have 4 people that are within the historical research group right now that'll be working, reviewing such data as, well, I can't be specific to the files that are at David Marlar's library, but he has currently the largest library of original files. And you may be aware of what's within that library, but I can't speak on it personally because it's not my library. But I will be helping to digitize that with our team. And so at some point, that will actually be completely public. And that is his mission to do so. And he's receiving files all the time right now. So his library is gradually growing. So the idea is very clear, is to take a bunch of history that has great data and a bunch of current data and present it at Congress.
I think that's wonderful. Congratulations to you and your team, man.
Thanks a lot, Dave. And I will love, with permission, to give you all the details of this as it unfolds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know you'll keep us quite in touch with this moving forward, and I think that's excellent. And anything that we can do to help you, just let us know.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah.
All right. NASA and Russia, 2 countries that despise each other, want to kill each other, talk about how they are going to overrule and overpower one or the other sometime in the future when the great battle to the sky happens. And yet here we are teaming up with them behind the scenes going into space. What's happening here?
And it's a once again sort of charming relationship because this is nothing new to NASA and Russia. We've been um, being compadres in space, working to integrate up at the space station for decades. So what had happened was we had a pause, and now we're reinstating that relationship. And so NASA and Russia's space agency Roscosmos have signed a long-sought agreement to integrate flights to the International Space Station, allowing Russian cosmonauts to fly on the US-made spacecraft in exchange for American astronauts being able to ride on Russia Soyuz, the agency's. And Friday, the agreement is in the interest of Russia and the United States, and it will promote the development of cooperation within the framework of the ISS program. So, Dave, what do you think? Looking to collaborate in space, hoping to have good relations on Earth. Do you think it's going to translate? Looks like it's part of the process.
I think it needs to be part of the process. As we had a conversation very privately earlier this week, which we discussed, one of the comments that was made during that conversation was the real worry in space is China. It's not Russia. It's not the United States. It's China. Potentially getting to the moon, potentially weaponizing the moon, which has been a little bit part of their public mantra. And I think if both Russia and the United States can work together to try and keep space kind of clearly flowing in a different pattern than what China would like, I think it's a smart move. I mean, let's face it, space is politics. Whether you like it or not, space is politics. We got to figure out how to clean it up. We got to figure out how to get bases on the moon. We need to get those studies up, unless you're like me, where you think there's already people up there and they're parking ships there. But I mean, let's face it. If the goal is to try and control what China does in space, the Russians and the Americans need to work together. They really do. That's my thoughts on it. How about yours, Tim?
It makes me happy. I was disappointed to see that collaboration fall apart there for a little while, but I think it was simply because we weren't going. We didn't have the shuttle program. So we had a pause on that relationship. We have plans to get back out into space, and it's so great that we're already planning to include our compadres. I think it's fantastic, and I'm excited about it.
Well, I think it's going to be good for a long time as well, and I'm really hoping, really hoping that we could see some progress here, especially when it comes to extraterrestrials. Because when it does come to extraterrestrials, we need to start collaborating. Much like at the beginning of our show on YouTube, where we bring in the Reagan speech to the UN back in 1984 or 86, whenever it was. Okay, when he basically says, that in case there's any action coming from space where they want to come beat us up, we're all going to have to pull together and do it for humanity. And maybe that's something we need to do. Maybe this is a start of it. Who knows?
That's right. And we definitely know that Russia is looking into it. They've been pretty vocal. Even Putin has said that they're looking into UAP. They may have a task force. We know China definitely is. But I think the fact that Russia is looking to collaborate in space just kind of points to the fact that they are looking towards the same technology as we are. And we also can tell from history, they've shared cases with us about these craft coming and taking interest whenever they do something in mobilize units, mobilize something nuclear. Whenever something mobilizes, they see that there's this UAP interest. And they've shared that kind of story with us multiple times, multiple events. So we can kind of share some of this history. And, again, we've had good relations in space with Russia for decades. So this is just very refreshing to see it happening again. And we're kind of sharing our science, even though we may not be sharing the same terms and agree on other things, let's just say.
Right. All right, let's get to the final topic tonight, because once again, our good friends at NASA, yep, it always comes down to them. There was just signals. NASA runs SETI pretty much. Okay, and SETI apparently got some signals, which they are now saying was swamp gas. And because, the one thing in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence is that it's never aliens. Never. Tim, this is angering me.
That's right. And of course, this one is kind of a little bit more recent. This just recently happened. What we're detecting is a new series of FRBs. And these FRBs are fast radio bursts. Now, we usually get them from all over the place in our galaxy, but they're random. But when we get them in a pulsating, repeating kind of signal, quote unquote, we can take interest in them. Now, whenever we get those and they're rare, we look deeply into space and we try and find their source. And often it's from a totally blank place in the sky. And so we assume it's from something that took place long before, or it's something that's not there anymore, meaning something moving. So there's a few question marks, and it's very easy to kind of disregard this as being something that's just a regular repeating FRB. But what we're finding is that SETI, unfortunately, leaps to this conclusion without actually finding the data first. And unfortunately, very recently, again, we have another case where we're getting something detected in deep in our own Milky Way galaxy that's being disregarded as just an FRB that can't be repeated and isn't interesting. Although the scientist, Sarah Burke, is very interested, and an astronomer at West Virginia who studies FRBs is looking deeply into this and isn't taking SETI's answer as necessarily the ultimate answer and is looking deeper. Dave, I know how you feel about SETI and they're jumping to conclusions. How do you feel about this response?
Well, they have literally gone down the road of what would Seth Stoshak do? Okay, and that is, potential aliens? Nope, it's a star farting over in Zeta Reticuli. That's exactly the way he thinks of everything is swamp gas. And trust me, I think it's absolutely disgusting that somebody like him is actually part of the Galileo project with Avi Loeb, because we need people with open minds, not closed minds. And Stoshak and the SETI organization have had more than 40 years to comply with potential findings. And in 40 plus years, they've got nothing. Nothing. So they claim. I think it's an absolute whitewash. It's a waste of money. I think it's a backdrop for something else where communication has been made, and these very brilliant people make us look like idiots because they don't want to admit that there's potential out there. And we'll never know what they have. We just know what they don't have. I don't believe SETI for an instant. And nobody who even has half a brain should understand that SETI is logical with their lack of findings.
That's right.
You know, these are the only scientists in the world who get paid major money to find nothing for 40 years. Why is something, I'm sorry, now I'm going to rant here. Why is something still together if you haven't got results in over 4 decades of work? You know what happens in a hockey team if you lose, or any professional sports team, if you go on a losing streak for 40 years? Step into my office. You're fired. Yet we're allowing and paying into 40 years of nothing. Now, hey, I understand the critics will sit there and say, well, shut up, Dave. Shut up. Okay, they have the right people involved to detect something anomalous from, say, a star explosion to radiation bursts. Okay, they got the right people involved. I get that. I can understand that. I appreciate that. But if you have the kids in Zimbabwe, 62 of them walked into saw a UFO land, and the aliens come out, guess what? That creates a signal. We have astronauts who've been followed even while they're walking on the moon. And Tim, you know that. All right. We have X-15 pilots from the 60s flying at 314,000 feet above the ground, being followed by UFOs. Astronauts from Gemini right up to today talking about them. There's a lot of evidence that SETI loves to say does not exist. Should just change it to swamp gassy. That's it. I'm sorry. Pisses me off. They treat us like we're stupid.
That's right. And for the same reason that Project Bluebot got closed down is the same reason that SETI is still open, because they can explain things away this quickly. And obviously, Dave, you make a great point. If something is discouraged this quickly and claimed to have the evidence of, or at least the opinion of, that this is to be disregarded, that's a red flag to me. But also, I'm a guy that remembers SETI in its infancy and had it on in my laptop as the default screensaver, and I would dedicate my laptop's downtime to SETI. And I was a true believer in that. In fact, I think I had 2 laptops that I dedicated to SETI. And here's why I still believe in SETI. I may not support them making disparaging remarks on other people's work, but and some of the individuals I may not like, but I like the program, and here's why. If there is something to hear, they'll be listening. And I don't think that they would make it secret if they found something. I just think they haven't. And I think that after years of discouraging data, some of the players involved may feel discouraged, especially when they've probably seen something that's duped them, in the past. So let's just consider the program valuable, but some of the players jaded. And that's the way I personally see it, but I see the program having value. Because if somebody wants to communicate, we need to be ready to listen, And I've visited Jodrell Bank in England, which is a giant listening device. And I must tell you, I'm glad that we're listening, because if they want to say something, I want to be ready.
We're going to agree to disagree on this because I love you, man. And, but I understand with where you're coming from. I really do. You're way more scientific than I am, and I'm way more passionate than you are. Okay. But I'm sorry, 40 years of nothing, you get fired from your job. Okay. Even researchers who've been studying diseases like cancer or AIDS or anything at least have a breakthrough every now and again because they're working towards cures, and that's for debate on a whole different subject.
Okay,
Okay.
well, Dave, at years at SETI, at least they know what what these signals aren't. Right? They've been able to siphon out some things, right? And we know what false readings look like. So if nothing else, we know what the data looks like when it's not proving to be ET. So we're ready to see something that definitely is. But
What about the wow? What
the
about the
wow
wow?
signal, right?
Right?
Undeniable. And so we
Well,
live for another one of those.
yeah. Well, according to SETI, it's meant nothing for 40 years. Nothing. Guess what, Tim? The best part about tonight, I get the final word. I get the final word.